What if modern education is kind of missing its soul? Today we're going to explore a really unique philosophy called the theory of unification education. It was actually born from that exact feeling of crisis, and it tries to answer one massive question. And that question is this: has modern education completely lost its fundamental purpose? I mean, think about it. We've got incredible data, amazing technology, and all these new teaching methods. But is there a clear why behind any of it? The source we're exploring today argues that, yeah, something absolutely essential has gone missing. And wow, this quote from the source really just hits you, right? It perfectly captures that feeling. The idea that education is becoming this simple transaction, information for a grade, instead of a real journey of transformation. So let's dig into the problem this theory was actually designed to solve. All right, let's start with that crisis of purpose. According to this theory, what are the actual symptoms? What does it look like on the ground? Well, the source argues the symptoms are kind of all around us. You see it in big societal issues like delinquency and declining moral standards, but you also see it right there inside the school itself, a total collapse of the teacher-student relationship, which leads to this loss of both authority and passion. And here's a really fascinating point the source makes. It argues that this lack of a core philosophy created a vacuum, and that vacuum allowed other critiques to get a real foothold, like the communist argument mentioned here, which basically claimed that democratic education just wasn't equipped to solve deep social problems like class inequality. Now, the source isn't endorsing this view, to be clear, but it's presenting it as a serious challenge that any new educational philosophy would have to be able to answer. Okay, so this brings us to the search for a solution. If the problem is a missing philosophy, well, then the answer has to be finding a new, really compelling why for education. So this theory makes a super important distinction between two sides of education. On one side, you've got educational science. That's the how. That's curriculum, teaching methods, administration, and we are very, very good at this stuff. But then, on the other side, there's educational philosophy. That's the why. It's what defines the ultimate goals and the whole purpose of learning. And the source argues this is the side that we have dangerously, dangerously neglected. And so, unification education is put forward as that missing piece of the puzzle. It's not a new curriculum or some new teaching method, it's an educational philosophy. Its whole goal is to provide a clear vision for why we educate in the first place, and it grounds that vision in principles of human growth inspired by a divine framework. So, you might be wondering, where does this framework actually come from? Well, the entire philosophy is built on what the source calls the three great blessings, and these are derived from principles found in the book of Genesis. The foundational idea here is that education, at its core, is about guiding a person to develop their character in a way that reflects a divine nature. And this whole process is structured around fulfilling three key promises, or blessings. And here they are. First, be fruitful, which is interpreted as achieving the perfection of your individual character. Second, multiply, which means building a harmonious family. And third, rule over the earth, which is understood as practicing creative and responsible stewardship of the entire world. These three steps are seen as the complete path to human fulfillment. So how does all this philosophy actually apply in practice? Well, the three blessings are translated directly into three concrete ideals for education. The first ideal is the perfection of individuality. This is all about the educational goal of helping a person develop a truly mature character. The theory describes this as finding a harmony between your spiritual side, the spirit mind, and your physical desires, the physical mind, with love being the central guiding force that brings them together. The second ideal, the perfection of family, builds right on top of that first one. Once a person has developed a mature character, education should then prepare them to create a stable and loving family. It's really about learning how to be a good partner and a good parent, which, of course, forms the foundational unit of society. And finally, we have the perfection of dominion. This is all about teaching individuals to become masters of creative stewardship. The idea is that we're meant to inherit a spark of divine creativity and then use it to contribute positively to the world, whether that's through science, art, industry, or leadership. Now, it is so crucial to understand what the source means by dominion, because it's not about selfish exploitation at all. It's about responsible, creative stewardship. And this can take so many forms, from farming and industry to scientific research and artistic expression. The key point, the absolute deal breaker, is that this creativity must be centered on love and concern for others. Without that, the source warns, it just leads to destructive outcomes like environmental ruin and conflict. So the theory lays out these pretty grand ideals. But how does a person actually achieve them? This section gets into our role in the whole process of growth. And this brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in this whole philosophy. Human growth is not a passive process. It's not automatic. Our bodies grow automatically, but the source says that our character, our soul, it doesn't. It only grows when we choose to fulfill our portion of responsibility. What that means is that growth isn't guaranteed. It's a choice we have to make through our own free will and conscious effort. It's on us. And this is where the role of the educator becomes just so vital. The source puts it beautifully and simply. The teacher must teach with the heart of a parent. The idea is that since education originally began in the home, the teacher has to guide students not just with academics, but with that same parental love and deep care for their whole being. So, to bring it all together, the key takeaways from the theory of unification education are really these three interconnected ideals. First, you focus on personal character development, becoming a person of integrity. Second, you prepare to build a strong and loving family. And third, you empower people to use their unique talents to contribute creatively and responsibly to the world. And that leaves us with a final question to think about, one that brings us right back to where we started. This whole theory is a response to the idea that education has been boiled down to just a transfer of knowledge. So if its true purpose is something more, what do you think it should be?